Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in because today we are unpacking a deeply unsettling, just totally fascinating narrative straight from our source material. We're going to be exploring the haunted highway, kind of mapping out exactly how this story builds up tension, messes with our perception, and ultimately delivers a totally devastating twist. So let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this wildly chilling premise. What happens when a desperate attempt to escape lockdown turns into a one-way trip to nowhere? The whole story starts with a setup pretty much all of us can relate to, right? Being stuck indoors, just absolutely desperate for a change of scenery. But our source material takes that totally mundane, super relatable desire and just warps it into something terrifying. We're following a family who literally just wanted a vacation, but instead they end up trapped in a sequence of events that completely defies logic and reality. Section 1. A desolate midnight drive. So the context here is absolutely crucial to understand. Picture this. It's been 2 long years of being cooped up in lockdown, and this family, they're at their breaking point. The wife, Shreya, and their daughter, Sakshi, basically insist on a road trip, and the husband, Mohit, finally agrees. They pack up the car for what's supposed to be a 10-day mountain vacation. It's meant to be this joyous, freeing escape. But things move really fast, and this innocent little plan leads them directly to a midnight drive on a completely deserted highway. The contrast between what they expected and what they get is just stark. And the source text describes the atmosphere so vividly here, it calls it a silence like a graveyard. It's not a peaceful silence, you guys, it's ominous. Mohit's foot is heavy on the gas, and the speedometer is hitting 100. Shreya's in the passenger seat with her headphones in, and Sakshi is asleep in the back. They are completely isolated in this little metal box, speeding dangerously fast through absolute, deafening darkness. It is literally a textbook setup for disaster. Section 2. The Phantom on the Road. Okay, so here's the inciting incident, and it happens in a flash. Out of nowhere, a woman holding a baby appears directly in front of their speeding car. Pure panic. Mohit slams on the brakes, but it's just too late. Bam! The car strikes the woman, throwing her and the child like 20 feet into the air. The sudden braking and the massive impact cause Mohit to completely lose control, and the car crashes violently into a nearby tree. It's a devastating, totally chaotic moment. Now, what's really interesting about this part of the text is what happens immediately after. Mohit is in complete shock, right? He stumbles out of the wrecked car, bracing himself to see the victims, but the bodies are gone. There is no woman. There's no baby. The road is completely, inexplicably empty. And this, for us as the audience, is our first major clue that something is fundamentally wrong with the reality Mohit is experiencing. Section 3. The Eerie Highway Motel. Bizarrely enough, after this horrific crash and the impossible disappearance of those victims, Mohit's family just kind of shakes it off. Sakshi actually complains she's hungry, and they decide to just walk down the dark road to find this place called the Line Hotel. And let's just go through this checklist of dread the source text gives us, because this Line Hotel is profoundly wrong. The guy at the reception desk has this massive deep scar across his face. The entire staff just stops whatever they're doing and stares at the family with these bizarre, unsettling expressions. The location itself is incredibly isolated, and when they ask to use a washroom, they're told there isn't one inside. They literally have to go out into the pitch-black field behind the building. Oh, and oddly specific, the hotel strictly serves only non-vegetarian food. Every single detail here is perfectly designed to make the viewer and the family feel entirely unsafe. And then, the hallucination escalates. While he's sitting at this super creepy hotel, Mohit looks across the highway. The text tells us he sees her again, the exact same woman, with the exact same baby in her arms. She's staring right at him. And then, she calmly walks directly into the path of a massive, speeding truck. The truck hits her with tremendous force, but she just vanishes. Poof! Right into thin air. Mohit is witnessing these impossible, violent loops of reality, and at this point, his heart is just pounding out of his chest. Section 4. A gruesome discovery. All right, so Mohit's fragile grasp on reality completely fractures right here. That simmering dread from the hotel just boils over into sheer, unadulterated panic. Here is how his mind breaks, horrifying step by horrifying step. First, he hears these strange, muffled screams coming from that dark field behind the hotel. Then, he gets hit by a sudden, overpowering stench of rotting meat. He rushes to find his wife, Shreya, and she is completely frantic and terrified. And then comes the absolute most devastating blow of all. Their daughter, Sakshi, is missing. The horror absolutely peaks here. Because that stench Mohit smelled, yeah, it wasn't just dead animals. Shreya had found the hotel's kitchen. She opened the fridge, and inside were chopped human hands and feet. In a total panic, she screams, "They killed Sakshi! There are chopped human hands and feet in the fridge!" It is a moment of pure visceral shock value in the source material. Driven entirely by grief and adrenaline, Mohit finally snaps. The text describes how, in a blind rage, he grabs a heavy iron rod. He actually attacks the scarred hotel owner, beating him mercilessly until he's dead. But the nightmare doesn't stop there. He looks up and he sees that ghost woman again, standing out on the dark highway, holding her baby, staring right at him. He abandons the hotel entirely and just runs wildly into the open road, chasing this phantom through the dark. Section 5. The horrifying truth. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive twist. All that bizarre imagery, the missing bodies, the impossible hotel, it all suddenly snaps into a grim, devastating focus. Think about Mohit's reality up to this point, right? Fighting for his life, trying to save his family from some cannibalistic staff at a remote motel. But as he runs down the highway, he sees flashing police lights. He runs up to them to report the murders, but the police completely ignore him. Because the objective reality here, the police are actually gathered around a crushed car wrapped around a tree, Mohit's car. That entire motel sequence was literally nothing but a hallucination in his dying brain. The facts of the scene are laid out so coldly in the text. The police aren't ignoring Mohit out of malice. They literally cannot see or hear him. Because they are currently pulling 3 lifeless bodies from the twisted metal of that wrecked car. First Sakshi, then Shreya, and finally Mohit himself. They never survived that initial violent crash into the tree. Everything that happened after, it was just a death dream. The tragedy of it all is compounded by this incredibly cold observation from one of the police officers at the scene. They note, "There is such a big warning sign, danger ahead, do not enter," yet another family ignored it. The tragic irony here is heavy. The road wasn't just empty, it was officially closed. It was a known hazard. Mohit, in his rush to just start his vacation, drove right past a massive barricade warning him of the exact danger that ultimately killed them. Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number, 24. The police officer in the source text explicitly notes that Mohit's family is not the first. In just the last 6 months alone, approximately 24 families have ignored that exact same warning sign, driven down this closed road, and met their end in a fatal crash. That highway is, quite literally, a graveyard. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. In our fleeting moments, does the human mind create an intricate nightmare like the Line Hotel to somehow shield us from the blunt, sudden reality of our own death? Or in Mohit's case, was this horrific psychological loop a final punishment for his recklessness, for ignoring the signs that doomed his entire family? It's a deeply chilling question that the source text just leaves lingering in the air. Thank you so much for joining me to break down this fascinating narrative today. Until next time, keep analyzing and keep asking questions.